All right, today we're going to really get under the hood of what makes a public persona tick. We've got a detailed behavioral analysis here that lets us explore how an online identity gets built, how it's managed, and, well, what happens when it starts to crumble under its own weight. Let's just dive right in. So this really gets us to the heart of the matter. We all talk about personal branding, right? But what happens when that line between who you are and who you're performing as online gets blurry? This case study gives us a pretty fascinating and direct look at that exact question. Wrestler, referee, journalist, collector, podcaster. I mean, you look at that list and it sounds impressive, right? Like a super talented, multifaceted career. But the analysis we're about to walk through tells a very different story. It's a story about switching identities, and fast. This is where we start. Okay, so let's get into section 1, which the source material calls the revolving door resume. I love that phrasing. This is where we're going to look at this pattern of jumping from career to career and see how the gap between the brand and the reality starts to get wider and wider. First up, the subject often uses titles like pro wrestler and media personality. I mean, those are big public-facing roles. They immediately paint a picture of success, of influence. But let's see what the analysis actually turned up. And here it is. This is the key finding from the analysis. It basically concludes that, yeah, he claims these titles, but the evidence shows it was more of a branding exercise. A brief chapter framed as identity rather than documented success. In other words, it's all about having the label, not necessarily having the long-term career to back it up. Okay, next up, another identity, the collector and preservationist. Now, this brand makes the subject sound like a real guardian of history, Someone who is saving these rare artifacts for all of us. And on the surface, that sounds pretty noble. But, and you probably saw this coming, the analysis found a huge conflict. His actions, like publicly selling off super rare items, just didn't line up with the whole preservationist brand. It really hurt his reputation, because it looked a lot more like he was a commercial reseller, not an archivist. The brand and the behavior just didn't match. So you start to see this really clear pattern emerge, right? These identities get stacked on top of each other, almost as proof of, look how much I can do. But the minute one path stalls out or hits a snag, boom, there's a rebrand. And there's never really a clean ending to the last role. The analysis suggests this isn't really about career growth. It's a constant, restless search for the next hit of validation. So now we're going to shift gears a little and get into the emotional heart of this whole thing. Because this isn't just about job titles. It's about a really deep, long-term personal story that seems to be driving a lot of this behavior. To really get this next part, we need a quick vocabulary lesson on something called parasocial attachment. Basically, it's this powerful, one-sided bond someone forms with a public figure. To the person feeling it, it feels incredibly real and meaningful, even though the celebrity has literally no idea they exist. Keep that idea in your head because it is absolutely central to what's coming next. Check out this timeline. It's built from the subject's own public posts, and it shows this decades-long fixation on the actress Drew Barrymore. It starts way back in 1983 with an attempt to connect. It ramps up over the years, leading to a multi-page letter and even making her show a daily ritual. You can see this goes way beyond just being a casual fan. 38 years. Let that sink in. The subject himself actually frames this whole thing as being 38 years in the making. So this isn't some outside analysis putting a number on it. This is a core part of his own story about himself. It really emphasizes just how long this has been going on and how much personal meaning he's put into it. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? A single photo op with a celebrity is described as a moment he literally waited a lifetime for. It just shows you how deeply this one-sided attachment is tangled up in his own identity. You could say it's the ultimate validation he's been looking for all this time. Okay, so in this section, we're going to start connecting the dots. We're going to decode the underlying behaviors that link that revolving door resume we talked about with the deep parasocial fixation we just saw. So the first pattern they identified is this mix of what they call grandiose self-narration and the fragile status. What does that mean in plain English? It means you build this heroic, larger-than-life image of yourself, but it's an image that's actually really easy to pop. So any criticism is seen as a major threat that needs a really strong defensive response. And here is a perfect, almost painful, Example of that gap between the impression and the actual substance. The brand claim was archivist, protecting this historic tape collection. But the reality? By his own admission, these supposedly priceless tapes were just ruined in a hot storage unit. For an archivist, that's a catastrophic failure. It just perfectly highlights that disconnect. The second pattern is all about externalization. Whenever things go wrong, or when he gets called out, the blame is always pointed at outside forces. It's never a personal mistake. It's the algorithm's fault. It's unfair critics. It's personal hardships. It's a biased system. You see the list. It's a classic defense mechanism to protect that fragile self-image we just talked about. And this is where it all snaps together. The Drew Barrymore fixation, it's a textbook example of seeking validation by getting close to a celebrity. The analysis suggests that a reply, a retweet, a photo, any kind of acknowledgement is seen as this powerful form of approval. It's like an external sign of worth coming from a really high-status source. And finally, all of this leads right back to that compulsive rebranding. That long list of jobs, wrestler, journalist, collector, it isn't really about mastering a skill. The analysis frames it as a search for a stable, admired identity. So when one label doesn't give enough validation or it starts to get too much criticism, it just gets tossed aside for a new one. All right, let's bring this all home in our final section, the self-promotion engine. This is where we see how all these patterns lock together to create this self-sustaining cycle. The analysis really boils this entire thing down to a simple 4-step loop. It's almost mechanical. Step 1, get attention with a brand new identity. Step 2, take the heat that inevitably comes from people looking too closely or from failure. Step 3, rebrand with a fresh story. And step 4, just repeat the whole cycle. It's a predictable engine that just keeps running. So after all that, what's the bottom line from this analysis? It's this quote right here. After looking at all the different careers and identities, the one thing that has been the most durable success isn't any one of those things. It's the act of self-promotion itself. The performance is the achievement. So why does any of this matter? I mean, it's just one person, right? Well, because it's like a small-scale version of our broader online culture. The constant rebranding, that reflects the insane pressure we all feel to perform success online. The parasocial fixation, that shows how people are searching for meaning in these one-sided digital relationships. And the pattern of blaming everyone else, it shows just how hard it is to take ownership in an age where you can always blame the algorithm or the haters. And that really just leaves us with one final question to chew on. We live in a world that absolutely rewards being visible, that rewards having a personal brand. So the question for all of us is, where do you draw the line between building that brand and holding on to a stable, authentic sense of who you actually are?